The next excited speaker is Miss Kelly Carter. So Kelly, I know you moved here or moved from upstate New York.
I did. It was too cold up there, and I had to move. True story. I was not a Christian. I went to church, but was not a believer or a Jesus follower. So as I graduated from college, I was like, I can go anywhere I want. I think I'm going to go to North Carolina because they still have some cool weather in the winter and nice and warm, and it doesn't get to be 30 below. So
we moved
love it
to
here.
Rochester, New York.
Oh, God bless you.
Yes. And why?
Up there. Why?
Why? To do ministry work.
That's the only reason why you would go to
move there. We still to this day have great friends up there. We found the people very warm and
beautiful area.
It is. It was gorgeous up there. And we tried our hand at ice skating, which was interesting. I'm not sure we ever tackled that little feat, but we tried. And they always had big barrels out on the ice with fire in them so you could stay warm because the rivers were frozen solid. You weren't going to go down.
Because it's 30 below up there.
Yes. I said, please, God, make the winters just a little milder while we're there. So our older children had 2.5 years in Rochester, New York, but they were young. They may not remember those, but fond memories for Mike and me. So, yeah.
Awesome.
And so you came down to North Carolina and got saved.
I did.
And you...
I spent 5 years in Charlotte.
Right, and then you moved to Maryland. Tell us what you did in Maryland.
So I moved to Maryland to be a missionary initially, and so I did that, and that just means that you don't get a paycheck. Just for free for the church, and we planted a church in inner city Baltimore. That was amazing, and that was a great experience. But then I had to pay some bills and had some other dreams of going back to school and leading worship and singing, and so I went and got a job to help go in that direction. Except then I got sidetracked and ended up getting married and stayed there for 12 years until we moved back down here.
And you led worship though when you were married,
I did.
Do that sometimes in that ministry work.
Yes.
And then you moved back down here.
Moved back down here to be closer to family. I always grew up with my cousins, so I'm like, I want my kids to grow up with their cousins and know their cousins and their family. So we came back down here.
And you divorced in 2015.
And got a divorce, which was a very, very dark time.
And so you're going to be talking and sharing your heart and life with us about that this morning, and we certainly appreciate your willingness to do that. You have 2 children.
I do have 2 children. I was going to say, don't forget the kids, because that's the important part of divorce with children. And I have a picture of them if we want to throw that picture. This is Quinn and Corbin, and Quinn is now, this was a couple of years ago, but Quinn is now 15 and Corbin is 12, and they're awesome kids.
And you live on a mini farm.
I do. So not only do I have 2 kids, I have 3 chickens, 2 horses, and a dog. So I have a big family.
You do have a big family. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Appreciate your openness and to share with us how you went through that divorce and you have your children and how you have been sustained and triumphed with God and Christ. So please welcome with me, Kelly Carter.
Jane, and as I said, in 2015 I had went through a very dark time. I was still going to church, but going through a divorce, and so I had to figure it out. And I'm going to share with you a little bit. I'm a Bible study teacher. I've led Bible studies for years, throughout my years of being a Jesus follower. So I'm going to share a little Bible study and a little bit of my testimony, a little bit of my story. But I'm also going to teach you about dirt. Okay? Dirt is very interesting, and I'm going to teach you about dirt because not only is dirt important for growing things, but in the Bible, you see a lot of information about agriculture. So, and it speaks to me because I'm on a farm. I've got my horses, I've got to grow grass, okay? So in my importance to grow grass, I thought, well, all you have to do is throw seed and fertilizer, right? And so the last couple of years, I've been throwing seed and fertilizer, and it'll come up and it'll be green, and then it gets like this outside, and there's a promise of rain last night that never came, and we're already, 2 or 3 weeks in from our last rain, and I'm looking at the forecast, and there's no rain in sight for the forecast, and I'm like, my grass is gonna die. So it's important for me, especially because I'm growing it as food for my horses. I have the whole thing pastured in. And so I have a little area where I put my horses at night or when I'm having guests. And then I let them out in the whole yard, and they're my lawnmowers. So it's really important. They are functional lawnmowers, and I like to sit and watch them eat. But Jesus spoke in parables. Okay, and it's just a fancy word that he spoke in stories so that people could remember what he was talking about and they could relate to it because a lot of it was about agriculture. So what I want to do is teach a little bit. We're going to go to Luke 8, and of course this speaks to me because I'm a farmer. So, a farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell on the path, but it was trampled on, and the birds of the air ate it up. Some fell on rock. When it came up, the plants withered because they had no moisture. Other seed fell among the thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil. It came up and yielded a crop 100 times more than what was sown. This is the meaning of the parable. The seed is the word of God. So what's the seed? The word of God. Good. We got to remember that. Hold that in the sand. Those along the path are the ones who hear. And then the devil comes and takes away the word from their hearts so that they may not believe and be saved. Those on the rock are the ones who receive the word with joy when they hear it, but they have no root. They believe for a while, but in time of testing, they fall away. The seed that fell among the thorns stands for those who hear, but as they go on their way, they are choked by life's worries, riches, and pleasures, and they do not mature. But the seed on good soil stands for those with noble and good heart, who hear the word, retain it, and by persevering produce a crop. Ooh, that's some awesome stuff. So the seed is the word of God. You remember that? We had it in this hand. So what is the soil? The heart. It's our heart. The soil is our heart. The seed we take and plant in the soil, our heart. So as I was trying to figure out my soil issues at my house, I asked my dad, because obviously we grew up on a farm in upstate New York, and he's a farmer, he's still alive, which is awesome. So I went to him and I said, Dad, what do I do to grow good grass? I've got to grow fescue, okay? What do I do? And he's a man of few words, so he just said one word, and that was limestone. And I'm like, well, what does limestone do? I'm like, well, how do I know how much limestone to get? So he said, go to southern states, get yourself a little baggie like this, and any of you can do this, $10, and they'll go and take your little soil sample and figure out exactly what you need to put on your soil to grow your crop. So if you're growing corn, you tell them, I'm trying to grow corn, and they'll tell you what you need to grow the best corn ever. So I take them in and I say, I want to grow fescue. And they came back and they said, you need limestone. My dad was right. But they told me how much. And so I made some additions and stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I had to order a truck of limestone. I ordered 7 tons of limestone. Now that seems like a lot, but it fit in one of their small trucks. But luckily, they came and they spread it for me. So in 15 minutes, 7 tons of limestone is now down on my ground. And the guy is waving to me as he goes out, and he goes, you won't have to do that for a couple of years. I was like, cool, I'm good. So I'm like, okay, so when is this limestone gonna do its thing? And what does it do? So I Googled it. I can figure out what limestone does. It's apparently not a fertilizer. So I go on to Google, and Google says that limestone takes 6 months to break down. That's why I spread it in the fall. So it's 2 seasons to actually break down when you put it down in its natural form. Okay? What does limestone do? It raises the pH of the soil. Now, then I started thinking, pH, that's chemistry class. That's, remember the little tester things that you stick in? Is it an acid or a base? Well, the pH, so now I'm looking at it going, okay, so my soil is acidic and I need to raise the pH to make it less acidic. Why? Because it allows the plants to utilize the nutrients within the soil, okay? And then it allows the roots to grow deeper. And that way, when it gets like this outside, and it's not raining, and we don't see any rain in the future, those roots are way down in where the moisture is, and they can still live. And I should have brought you a picture of what my lawn looks like now. Because I spread it last fall, and this year I've had to mow my yard, which is, I hadn't had to do that because the horses couldn't keep up. I'm like, I might need to get another horse. Which my daughter said, yes, let's get another horse. So I say all that, and this is interesting, and this is how God is weaving everything together today, which is so cool. Because Dorothy was talking, and she started saying, God has a plan for your life. And I'm like, yes, that's what I want to say. God has a plan for your life. And she goes, but the enemy, and I'm going to paraphrase because this is what he gave me, the enemy has a plan for your life. Ooh. It's not just God who has a plan. The enemy has a plan. And then now we have some decisions to make as far as who we're going to follow. And it's very subtle. It's kind of like if you don't choose God, then you're in another camp. You have to be intentional. So I've got a good 3-point message for you, mainly because I want you to remember this, okay? So my first point is we need to prepare it. We need to prepare our hearts. We were talking about our hearts being the soil, so I need to prepare the soil by putting down my limestone and taking the acidity away. Now, I spent some time in a therapy chair because, as I said, I went through a very dark time. Therapy chair is not a bad thing. We need to work through some of our grief and some of our junk that we've got going on. What I realize is that let's say we have 60 women in here, there are 60 struggles. You're not here because life is great. You're here because you need healing. You're here because you need hope. I can tell you 5 years ago, I was sitting in a spot where I didn't have hope. And if you told me I was going to stand in front of a group of women and tell them about having hope, I would have told you were crazy. I couldn't put a sentence together. And look at me now. I can put a sentence together. And you may think, oh wow, she can talk, or she can, teach a Bible study or whatever. I couldn't then. I was in despair. It was awful. And I'm not going to give you all the details. I've shared with a couple of people what the details of my divorce is, because your struggle is different. And I want you to put your struggle into what I'm talking about, because this can relate to you whether you went through a divorce or not, whether you have children or not. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's move on. We're preparing it. So when I was with my therapist, she said, hold your heart. She said, what does it look like? I said, it's gray, and it's flat, and it's bumpy. And she's like, bumpy. And then later I thought, it was stony. It was stone, cold as stone, hard as a rock, because I was hurt. And that's our defense mechanism. This isn't the way it's supposed to look, is it? So, here are some of the things that were on my heart 5 years ago. I had a lot of anger. This is my flannel graph. We have Sunday school right here with a flannel graph. I had anger in my heart. I was mad at God. It's okay to be mad at God. It's okay. Sometimes life throws you a curveball and it stinks. I had shame. Here's why I had shame. I swore to myself, I will never get a divorce. And now all of a sudden, I'm judging myself the way I judged other people, not realizing it. It's righteous judgment. God exposed a lot. So I had shame to deal with. I was having panic attacks, okay? But the root of panic really is fear. So I had all this fear. What does the future look like? What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my kids? Am I going to screw them up if I leave? I don't want to look back and go, my kids are on drugs because I just left. I didn't want to do that. I had guilt. I had regret. Lord, did I make the wrong choice? I was a believer then. He and I led worship together and led a youth group together. It wasn't like I married a thug. I had regret. I was like, I must have chosen wrong. I don't know. And just for the record, I don't believe that I chose wrong. I believe that I had to go through some certain things to get me to the point where I'm at today. And not that he chose to drag me through the mud, but to get me here, God had to get my attention. I was grieving. There's loss in a divorce. There's loss. You just lost. I lost my best friend. And my only friend. Because when you're married, that's your best friend. That's your bud. You don't have good friends outside of that. At least I didn't. And that gives me a temptation to gossip. Because we ladies like to talk. And then, like, for me, I wanted to justify, hey, I didn't, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't, well, it takes two. It takes two to stay together. It takes two to pull apart. This was my heart. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. But God gave me a neat illustration. I was thinking about it. I'm like, because this is actually divorce with children. So how do the children wrap into this whole thing? And he said, Kelly, when you fly commercial, which I haven't flown in a long time, but I'm pretty sure they still do this. The flight attendant comes up, and she says, should the cabin lose pressure, these masks will come down, which aren't very pretty. I'm like, please don't let the mask come down. They come down, and if you're traveling with small children, what do they say? Put it on yourself first. So here's the thing. When you're going through something, your junk, take care of yourself first. okay? Because your kids are following your lead anyway, all right? So we got to take care of this acidic heart. We got to pour some limestone on it. What do you suppose the limestone is? Let's go to the scripture and we'll figure that out. Ephesians 3:16-19. I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the saints to grasp how wide, how long, how deep is the love of Christ. And you get that too. It wasn't this exact scripture, but I was like, I was ready to just, come on, go on. That's why I was preaching her down. Come on. How wide, long, and deep is the love of Christ. And to know that this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. I want the fullness of God. I want the fullness of his blessing. I want to be like Jacob, who wrestled the angel and said, I won't let you go until you bless me. That's how I want to be. That's how I want you to be. You need to be. Hold on to God and say, I won't let you go until you bless me. And the blessing is in love. So 1 Peter 4:8 says, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers a multitude of sins. So I need another heart, and we're just going to put it over this. Yay! Doesn't that look better? Now, this is still here, right? And it never really, I wrestle with that every day. Now it's less. It's not as bad as it was 5 years ago. But these things peek out every once in a while. I might get angry or impatient. Now what's interesting with love is we can say this and go, yes, we just need to love. But what does it look like? Right? So we're going to go over that, but one thing I want to put up here is the grass isn't greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. Okay? It's greener where you water it. So if we're watering this, which means if I'm spinning my mind around the offense and spinning my mind around the fear and spinning my mind around, this is going to grow. I don't want this to grow. So we got to find something else to spin around, right? Let's spin around this. This is good to spin around, okay? So I have more stuff to add to my flannel graph. We're going to go to 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8. Now, love is patient, love is kind. You've probably all heard this, whether you've been in church or not. If you've been to a wedding, you've heard this verse. What's interesting is, if you read 1 Corinthians 12, 13, and 14, this is not about marriage. It's about the church. And it's about how we relate to each other. It's about how you treat your waiter for dinner. It's about how you treat your children. It's about how you treat your mom. It's about how we treat each other, how we go about our day. So, I'm going to add some more things. Love is patient. Mm-hmm. Love is kind. Mm-hmm. Love does not envy. Does not boast. It's not proud. It is not rude. We have a really rude culture right now. It is awful. And I'm like, let's not be rude. We don't need to be rude. Love is not rude. Love is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. Well, that's opposite from my other heart, isn't it? It keeps no record of wrongs. I think I got to the long part. It does not delight in evil. It rejoices in the truth. It protects. It trusts. It hopes. I need this. It perseveres. And most in a room, so it's a good thing that love never fails. So there's our heart. This is what love looks like. This is preparing our heart. This is going to take time. Limestone takes time to break down. This takes time to get our mind readjusted to be on the right place, especially after you've been through something traumatic. Okay? So, our first point was to prepare it. We need to prepare the soil. We need to prepare our hearts. We need to prepare our hearts with love. So our second point is to feed it. This is where my fertilizer comes in. We need to feed the seed. We need to feed our soul. We need to be intentional about seeking God's presence and seeking His purpose. I think Jane was talking about everybody in this room has a purpose that God created for you. Again, the grass is not greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. So when we talk about relationships, what relationships do you want to grow? Well, I want my relationship with God to grow. And I can guarantee you, while I was with this heart, my relationship with my children was not growing. Now, I was still a parent. I wasn't a very good one. I was an impatient, angry. I looked in the mirror one day and I was like, "Oh, who is that person? Oh, that's me. I don't want to be that." I had this permanent scowl on my face. Like, I don't want to be like that. I want to be happy and smiling. I want to be this. So I've realigned myself, prepare my heart, and then start working on my relationships. Now, I'm going to give you some ideas for growing relationships with your children, and then give you some ideas with growing your own personal spiritual walk with God. So some of the things that I've changed, and again, this is not meant to be an all-inclusive list. None of these may work for you, but it's just to get you thinking, gosh, I should do something different. I need to do something different. Pray with your kids out loud each night. But I don't pray out loud, Kelly. Well, it's time to start. I pray out loud. I love prayer. Prayer is powerful. But I hadn't prayed aloud with my kids. What am I teaching them if I don't have them pray? So I started praying out loud with my kids. The other thing is passport to purity and passport to identity. This is a little kit that you can get from Amazon, $40. It's got a set of CDs. It's from Family Life Today. Family Life Today from Dennis and Barbara Rainey. Awesome. They spent a lot of time, a lot of money developing this. And what it is, it goes through the birds and the bees. It goes through peer pressure. It goes through dating, and it gives a whole biblical perspective on everything. And it opens up opportunities for conversation with your kids that normally wouldn't happen. So here's the thing. When obviously my son is 15, I've already taken him several years ago. My daughter just turned 12, and so I took her earlier this year. But I want to share with you a little bit because there's about 5 hours of CD listening to. So what you do is you plan this weekend, and I planned the weekend with my son, and there are several like little activities that you do throughout the talks and stuff that they do in there, and you're listening to it in the car, and then you stop and do a little activity. But when you get to your destination, before you leave, you ask your child, pick an activity that we can do together. And I'm like, that sounds like fun. I can do something really cool with my boy. you know? So I said, look, we'll go to Myrtle Beach because there's a lot of stuff to do down there. And I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm thinking, we could go horseback riding on the beach. That would be so much fun. So I told him, I said, we could go horseback riding on the beach. Wouldn't that be fun? He's like, I said, well, what about like sea kayaking? We could like go kayaking and like go see the nature and stuff. He's like, And so he said, let me think about it. And I said, okay. So he came back to me like probably a day later, and he said, I know what I want to do, Mom. And I said, awesome. And I'm like, what do you want to do? And he goes, I want to go for a biplane ride. I was like,
What is that?
what? And he goes, is that okay, Mom? And I said, yeah, that's okay. That's great. This is the boy that when you go to Carowinds, he's like, I want to go on any roller coaster. I'm like, this is the largest roller coaster ever. So we go on. I got some pictures. So they put us with these helmet things, like World War I type helmet, right? And you can see like there's like a communication thing where the pilot can talk to you. But I thought, when I sat down, I thought, there's no communication back. Like he can't, like I can't go, hey, can you take us back? Because I'm gonna, like we're not doing so good up here. And so all I hear is just him talking. I'm like, there's no way to communicate back to him. And he's like way behind us. My son and I are sitting there. So we take off. And it's a beautiful, beautiful day. And he comes on and he gives us the weather report. It's a beautiful day to fly, but we're too high. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at sea. I'm looking at the ocean. And we're in a total nosedive from 3,000 feet. And my son and I are like, we level it out, and I can just about touch the water in my hands. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, okay, that was fun. Is everybody okay? And I'm thinking, I can't tell you if I'm not okay. And he goes, just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Like, so if you put your hand all the way up, he could see. And so I don't know why, but I went. So we went in and out of the swamps and dodged trees. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was the most fun I ever had with my boy. And he talks about it to this day. He picked something that he wanted to do, and I jumped in and did it. Now, my daughter hates roller coasters too, and I thought, so I took her this past year, and I thought, well, I'll take her to Oak Island. And I don't think there's any biplanes there. So we get there, and I'm like, okay, what would you like to do? Maybe horseback riding on the beach? I need to go on Passport to Purity. And so or maybe sea kayaking, that would be fun too, Corbin. And she's like, I just want to go shopping, Mom. And I'm like, really? She goes, Mom, I know how much you hate shopping, which I do. I hate shopping. And so she said, but could we just take the money that you would have spent on kayaking and we can just go spend it? I'm like, let's do that. And we went shopping and we spent all the money and it was fun. And she loved it. So Passport to Identity is something similar. I haven't taken any of my kids on that yet. Quinn is due for it because you take them around 15, 16, and it's the next level to preparing for adulthood. But I can't speak to that right now. But this was awesome. So if this was awesome, I'm sure this next step is going to be awesome. But I wanted to share that with you. And you've got, did you go through the other pictures? Awesome. So pray out loud with your kids, Passport to Identity, and two small other things. Tell them you're sorry when you're wrong. So important because we're teaching them how to live life and have relationships. And saying you're sorry when you're wrong is pretty important. Allow your kids to love the other parent. They love both parents, and it's okay. It's okay. So I want to go into some ideas for your own personal growth. Make sure that you have a church home. If you don't have a church home that you regularly attend, you need to find one. That's like hands down the most important thing. You need to have a church family together around you, because if you're going through something, icky comes up in my mind, but I want to say crappy, so they both come out. So that's what it is. Whatever you're going through, make sure that you have a church home. Be sure to read the Bible, prayer, Bible studies. If you don't know where to start in the Bible, start with the Psalms. I sat down and read through the Psalms. I would read a psalm every night. And just to hear David's cry in the wilderness when he was running from Saul, I'm like, man, you're speaking to me. Like, this is what I'm crying. So read through the Psalms. Be obedient to God's word and trust him. Read some self-help books. I brought a couple with me. I'm in the middle of reading Battlefield of the Mind, Joyce Meyer. Great book. Speaking the Truth in Love, How to Be an Assertive Christian. Really good book. And then one of my favorite authors is Dr. Henry Cloud. Boundaries was amazing, especially for parenting. There was a point where I had a really difficult time making any decision. Can I have ice cream, Mom? I don't know. Sure. Have ice cream. I don't care if it's 8 o'clock at night. Well, no, I need to make sure and make good decisions, and boundaries really help. Never go back. 10 things you'll never do again. Henry Cloud. Changes that heal and necessary endings. I just brought a few just to give you some ideas, and you can look through those later. Watch sermons online. Y'all, we live in an age of technology that is just amazing. We can punch into a church across the globe and listen to the most anointed preacher and most anointed message. Some of the churches that I listen to and watch are Elevation Church, Transformation Church, and I was listening to Joyce Meyer yesterday, and she was preaching my talk. She was preaching my message. She's like, whatever you focus on grows. And I'm like, whatever you water grows. I'm like, that's awesome. And that one was called Focus on the Positive Things in Life, if you want to follow up this day with an awesome message. Focus on the positive things in life. That was amazing. That was just yesterday. I was like, that's really cool. Have a thank journal or a faith journal. I have a thank journal, and what it is if God speaks to you, does something that you're like, that was totally God in my life. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be as small as for me, some of the stuff in here is Corbin needed a soccer jersey, a red soccer jersey for intramural soccer. And I'm like, okay, we're not going to Dick's Sporting Goods to go get a soccer jersey. I say, Corbin, and here's another opportunity to pray with your child and see what God does. So I say, Corbin, let's pray. We're going to go to Goodwill. She didn't like that idea. So I prayed, and I said, God, we need a soccer jersey. This size needs to be red. Amen. Let's go. We went to Goodwill, and don't you know, we found a red soccer jersey in her size with the tag still on it. And she was like, I'm going, look at that. Went right in here. It went right in here. Because there are times when things dry up. The enemy comes and kind of whispers in your ear and goes, he's not doing any for the, what's God done for you? I'll go back through. I'm like, look at what he's done. He doesn't mess with me now about that. This morning I was doing my quiet time and praying over you all and praying over this message, and in doing my quiet time, and that's one of the other things. I don't know who, have you used Jesus Calling? Anybody use Jesus Calling? Awesome. If you don't have a daily devotional, this is amazing. I think they even sell it at Hobby Lobby. But I read it this morning, right? And the first verse that I looked up, it was in Genesis, and it was about, it said, God created Adam in the soil, but from the soil. And I'm like, I'm talking about soil today. I'm like, that's some. So I read the other one, and it was Psalm 89:15. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then I looked at the other one, and it was Romans 12:1 and 2. And I thought, well, I'm using Romans. We haven't gotten there yet. I'm using Romans 2 later in my little message. So I'm like, that's really cool. And I'm like, I think I better look at Psalm 89:15 again. And here's what it says. Blessed are the people who worship you. Oh, Lord, they experience your favor. God's favor. And I'm going to go and teach it to the world. And I'm going to go tell these ladies that there's hope. And you don't need to stay in this place. We need to stay in this place. Thank journal, faith journal. Faith journal is a dream. I'm working on that right now. Because for a long time, when I went through my divorce, I didn't dream. Because everywhere I looked, it was like, crappy. So I'm going to start a faith journal and let God dream dreams and write them down and see God come to pass. Similar to the Thank Journal. It might be in the back of my Thank Journal. I'm not quite sure where that's going to be yet. Volunteer, help someone out. And if you can, volunteer at your church and develop friendships. That's very important. So we have prepare it, we prepare the soil, we prepare our heart. We have feed it. We need to feed our soil, feed our soul, feed the seed. And the last thing is we need to weed it. Weed it. We need to get the weeds out. This is where Romans 12:2 comes in. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. We need to weed out our bad habits. I'm not talking about, oops, I slipped up and said a cuss word. I'm talking about the habitual sin that we get into. Here are some ideas on weeding out bad habits. For a while, I tried to escape. It was painful going through divorce or any crud that you may be going through. It's painful. So we have a tendency of escaping that so that we don't have to feel it, right? So some of my ways of escape is I would sit and veg in front of the TV and just check out. So I stopped watching TV. I'm like, well, I'm not going to turn on the TV. So then it turned into social media, because it's easy. It's on your phone. It's with me everywhere. So, what's going on Facebook? What's going on Instagram? And I'm like, okay, it has its place, but it's not really my life. And then the next thing I ran into is games on my phone, right? Again, you got your phone with you. Well, it was Words with Friends. I love Scrabble, right? So at one time I had literally 20 games going on. So every free moment I would have to get on there. Okay, I'm winning this one. Okay, I'm winning this one. Right? Okay, we gotta stop Words with Friends. And so now I see people pop in and go, you've been invited to play a game by your mom or whatever. And I'm like, I can't get on there because I don't want to waste my time. I was talking to a friend last night and she said she was sitting at the deathbed of a friend and he said the thing that amazes me is that I thought I'd have more time. Well, we do. We've got a lot of time. We just waste it. We don't waste your time. Oh, and then I wrote down chocolate. When I get stressed, I'm like a stress eater. It may not look like it. Let me back up because I go on the treadmill and watch my sermons on the treadmill so that I can eat. Food is not my friend. Food is sustenance, okay? And God's still working on me. But I love chocolate. I love bark thins, dark chocolate, coconut with coconut and almonds. don't even start, because it's like crack. You will not be able to stop. And I cannot, BJ sells this huge bag of it, and I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. No more. Identify and change unhealthy thought patterns. Now, I want to share one of mine. This is going to be very vulnerable. After I left, I said, I will never do that again. I will never get married again. Now, some of you are like, ooh, girl, you were walking in the wrong direction. And I was. Because the next thing that popped into my mind was, well, what are you going to do if you meet somebody? And my next thing was, since I had just planted my foot in the ground, I said, I'll just live with them. Now, society might say that's okay, but if I'm trying to seek God's favor for my life, if I'm trying to seek God's will for my life, that's not the way to go. Now, luckily, he turned me around. I'm not living with anybody but my kids, my horses, and my chickens, and my dog. But I'm thankful that he turned me around with that thinking. But it's those little things that you plant your foot in the ground and say, because I was hurt so badly, I'm not doing that ever again. You've got to work through those, stay in love, and keep walking forward. Now, I have a life verse, and if you don't, anybody else have a life verse? A life verse is just something that you wrap yourself around and kind of live by. And mine is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, and it's trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, because I still don't understand this. I don't understand why I had to go through what I went through. But in all your ways, acknowledge Him. All your ways, acknowledge Him. And He will direct your paths. And some translations say He will make your paths straight. Make your path straight. That's what I want. I want a straight path from A to B, so that I don't wiggle around like with my mindset, with my junk, with the stuff that I've been through. Dorothy's been through a lot. But I guarantee that it wasn't a wrong mindset that got her where she is. It was a mind focused on Christ. Right? Amen. Yeah. Come on. So I want to end with this. God has a plan for your life. Amen. Thank you, Jesus. He has a plan and a purpose for your life. The enemy has a plan for your life. Your decisions determine what the outcome is. And that's found in John 10:10. John 10:10. Because the enemy wants to kill, steal, and destroy. But Jesus came that you may have life and have it more. You may have life and have it more abundantly. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you. Thank you for our time together. Thank you for downloading this into my soul and letting it work in and work itself in and to teach me. And I'm preaching to myself as much as I am to anybody in this room, Lord. But I pray that you would fall fresh on these women. They're not here because they didn't have anything else to do. They're here because they need healing from you and they need a word from you, Lord. So I pray, Lord, that you would give them your peace, give them your love, and give them a direction to go in, Lord. Give them the next step. God, we love you, we praise you, we worship and adore you. It's in your name we pray. Amen.